Welcome back to episode 2 of the Øredev debrief week of 2024. This week we're releasing 6 episodes, each a chat with the speakers of one of the keynotes. And in this episode, I talked to IT security expert David Jacoby about his way into the field of IT security. It's a story beginning in the era of BBS and expensive phone calls and ending in today's world of ransomware and data leaks. And this is a shorter interview. We were talking just before David went on stage to deliver his keynote, and so there was a rather hard time limit. But David was extremely relaxed and generous with his time. And toward the end, when we say 7 more minutes, that's actually the time until the keynote starts. Who needs margins when you know what you're doing, right? And he did know what he was doing. He delivered an excellent keynote. But if you think this is much too brief, we do have a second interview coming out today with Kent Beck and Beth Andres Beck. So there's plenty of listening to go around. And you can, of course, listen to and look at the videos from the keynotes themselves. The links are, as always, in the show notes. Finally, big thanks to Øredev for inviting Kodsnack again. They paid for the trip and the editing time of these keynote recordings, but they have no say about the content of the episodes. Right, back to the stage. So, welcome to the stage, David.
Thank you.
We're discussing BBS systems and common acquaintances.
Yes.
But that's not exactly why we're here right now. We're also going to try not to spoil the keynote.
Yeah, don't talk about the keynote, because then
don't mention the keynote.
It will be an empty room.
Yeah, because we can easily summarize that in a third of the time. So I thought, as a starting point, how did you end up here? How did you end up giving this keynote at Øredev?
Well, I blame you guys.
Yeah, fair enough.
It was, I guess, the program committee and a girl called Sanne that works with security, and I work with security, and she pinged me like, hey, I'm on the program committee for Øredev. Why don't you come and do a live hack and you know, do some hacking on stage? And I said, since you're asking, why not? Yeah. Of course I'll do it, you know. For you, I'll do it. And I've actually been asked to be here as a speaker before, but haven't had the time.
Oh, yeah, it happens.
So now I have the time, and now I'm here. So,
perfect.
Cool.
So how did you end up in security work?
So I actually celebrate 30 years as an ethical hacker this year.
Oh.
So I've been doing it for quite some time.
Yeah.
And I ended up being interested in computer security and hacking because of BBSs, to be honest.
Oh.
Yeah, so I was dialing into these BBSs, and on these BBSs, you had all these different files, and some of the files was just text files on how to break into different kind of systems, and most of those systems were related to different, you know, phone system, PBXs, and you know how to rebuild your phone to basically bypass some of the security mechanisms you can dial for free, because at that time it cost a lot of money to dial, you know, outside your own little city. Yeah. So, and if you want to dial some of the cool BBSs that's not in your local area, you had to be able to somehow cheat the system. Yeah. And I tried to do that with the text files that I downloaded from the BBSs, but those text files was basically describing the American phone system. So I was like, crap, this is actually not working. So I had to read up on how to bypass the Swedish phone system, and I'm way too sober to talk about the rest.
But yeah, so you basically started in computer security almost before there was that expression.
Yes, so actually when I started to try to make a living of computer security, a lot of people, including my own family, basically said, why are you actually trying to work with computer security? Yeah. Because there's no future in working with computer security. Well, screw them, you know. Actually,
jokes on them.
Jokes on them. Actually, it went very well working with computer security. But it's actually, if I should be honest and a little bit serious, it's actually been a wild ride, because it was difficult in the beginning. Just no companies were actually interested in you know, buying pen tests or security products, because they didn't really feel the need to do that at all. It was not a prioritized topic. Yeah. There was no trainings, there was no universities, there was nowhere to study. So if you were interested in computer security, you were basically on your own, and then you had access to you know, the hacking community and the security community.
Yeah.
But we were just nerds, There was no formalized, there was no legislation, there was nothing. It's just a complete wild, wild west, 25, 30 years ago.
Yeah,
it was complete crazy.
Yeah. So when did the awareness in companies start building? When?
I think it's part of the evolution, because when it's this cat and mouse game. So you had all these systems, but at the same time you also had all these hackers breaking into the systems.
Yeah.
And, in the beginning, it was basically no consequence if a system got hacked, because it was very isolated to that specific system that got compromised. And it was not really a social impact. But as soon as companies started to lose money on computer security, data was not as valuable then as it is as now. But when you can cheat the system and phone for free, for example, or disrupt services like hacking the traffic lights, or different kind of banks and disrupting things with computer security, then obviously the larger organization thought, we actually need to protect our systems and work with local hardening and firewalls and so. But basically, the only thing we did back in the day was local hardening and firewalls.
Yeah.
That's it. that was the only security products that existed.
Yeah. But that demand, when did you start being able to sell those services?
So I was employee number 1 for a company called Outpost 24. And what we did was we built automated vulnerability scanning solutions. And this is over 20 years ago. It was very difficult. But what really changed the industry was something called PCI DSS. Okay. When PCI DSS came out, it's a legislation that forces companies that controls and handles credit card information.
I've heard of that.
It became a requirement for them to invest in certain products. For example, automated vulnerability scanning and logging. And so it's kind of like similar to what we're experiencing now with the ISO standards and NIST and DORA and so on. But at that time, that was basically the first real legislation that put some kind of requirements on a specific industry. That started to build the momentum of, this is something that we need, and we're going to put some kind of regulation on how to handle IT and info and cyber. But in those most cases, it was only info security, like how do you handle data. But then, there was more legislation, there was more things happening, more attacks happening. And eventually we're right now when we basically cannot revert. Like we cannot live without an email address. So we are stuck in this digital world that we live in.
Yeah, exactly. And all the information has become so much more valuable. It's
exactly.
In the late 90s, it was like, okay, you got some personal information. What are you going to do with that? And now it's, oh no.
But even the malicious code that you saw back in the day, like I remember there was on PC machines, there was an MS-DOS virus called Junkie. The Junkie virus, which basically was completely harmless. It didn't do anything, but it just spread like you can't believe it. But now when you talk about malware and malicious code, you maybe think about ransomware, where you basically encrypt all your data, prevent you from accessing the data, and that has a different impact. But at that time, it was a little bit harmless. Now, cybercrime is not harmless. It's real, and it's really bad if you don't focus on it.
And when did that switch start to happen? When would people start to realize people can exploit this for evil purposes?
It was roughly 20, 15 years ago, and I think we started to see cyber criminals, or we were actually seeing real criminals abuse cyber as one of their playing fields. And I don't know if you remember, in Sweden it was called the police Trojan. It was basically a ransomware that infected one machine. Didn't spread like that. It infected one machine, and then it came up as big red notice on your computer saying you watched porn or you downloaded movies, which is something that everyone does. You download movies from Pirate Bay and you watch porn on your computer. So everyone, and then it says like, if you don't pay this amount of money, we will leak the information that we have about you, that you downloaded this stuff or watched this content. And then it modified to say we actually even have photos of you because you had the web camera. We actually hacked your web camera, so now we also have photos of you, doing your thing. And that was like the first real kind of ransomware, but it wasn't like, it didn't ransom the data. It was like blackmailing you, because the likelihood of you downloading movies or watching content that you shouldn't do was very high.
Yeah, and also having a webcam. So.
And that also changed, because, and I even think today, people in now 2024, 25, don't even care about security today. Not in the extent that we need to.
Okay, so
it's something that we're forced to do. It's not something that we want to do.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. So we're still way behind.
We're still way behind. But for me, it's not weird that we're behind. And I'm actually going to talk about that in the keynote in a few minutes about with all the money and all the resources on the technology, how come that we haven't solved the problem yet? You know.
Yeah.
And I look at us right now from a historical point of view, like from transformation as a historical point of view, and try to make some analogies. But for me, it's not weird at all that we haven't solved this problem.
No. And I guess that's a good lead-in teaser for the keynote, which you probably want a few minutes to prepare for.
I don't even know what... You have to kick me out when I have to...
It's a 1:45 now, so...
When does the keynote start?
Isn't it 10:02? I can check.
I don't know.
Yeah.
7 more minutes.
Yeah, so
we have 7 more minutes.
No, you want to be in there and prepared instead
of... It's easy, you know.
Okay, so do you have a horror movie tip for us?
Horror movie tip?
Yeah, to round off.
Oh, very good. So I like the silly horror movies, you know.
Sounds good to me.
There's a movie about 2 guys. I'm trying to come up with the name of this horror movie. The name is Tucker and Dale versus Evil.
Ooh.
And it's about these 2 hillbillies, where one of the hillbillies finds a very cool, hip girl attractive and tries to approach her. And then there's some extreme miscommunication between the hillbilly and the cute girl. So the cute girl thinks that they're trying to kill her, like a traditional slasher movie. Yeah. And you are moving back and forth between, you know, how the girl is interpreting the behavior from the hillbillies and the hillbillies interpreting the behavior from the cool kids.
That's
and people keep dying in the most silly, weird ways. And I just... Sounds very dark, but it's an extremely fun movie.
An extremely good twist on the usual concept. Yeah, that's great. Yeah.
So you see it from both sides.
Yeah,
you know?
Both perspectives. It's awesome. Yeah, I'll let you go prepare for the keynote. Thank you so much.
Prepare for the keynote. Thank you very much.
A quick but huge thank you to everyone sponsoring us on Coffee. You too can become one of them by surfing to ko-fi.com/KODSNACK. Kodsnack, and giving us either a one-time donation or monthly support. If you support us on the coffee drinker level of €5 per month or more, you get a bunch of very nice stickers in your actual physical mailbox. And if you support us on the barista level for €10 per month or more, you also get a thank you right here. Big thanks to Almin Groen, Svante Richter, Anders Legell, Brother Ingo, and Tobbe Lundberg. Everyone who supports us helps make the podcast possible, and the more of you there are, the better we can make the podcast. We do sometimes have sponsors, but it's actually your support which is making it possible to cover our monthly costs. And if you want to support us in other ways, you can, of course, give the podcast a review in your podcast player. That also helps a lot. Give it a thumbs up, a star, write a comment, or whatever your player supports. Or, of course, simply tell someone who might like the podcast about an episode. And remember, you're a fantastic person whether you support us or not. Tack för att just du lyssnar på Kodsnack. Om du vill stödja oss, varför inte tipsa en bekant om podden? Eller lämna en recension i till exempel iTunes eller något annat ställe där det går att sätta betyg på poddar. Du kan också stödja oss genom att köpa oss en kopp kaffe på Coffee, ko-fi.com/kodsnack. Alla pengar går direkt till att göra podden bättre och trevligare. Du kan också komma och hänga i vår Slack-kanal. Länk finns på kodsnack.se, precis som alla andra länkar och all annan info kopplat till varje avsnitt. Sist men inte minst finns det också en länk till vår Spreadshop-butik där du kan köpa tröjor och andra prylar med Kodsnacktryck. Återigen, tusen tack för att du lyssnar. Vi hörs.
Let me put it this way, Mr. Raymer. The 9000 series is the most reliable computer ever made. No 9000 computer has ever made a mistake or distorted information. We are all, by any practical definition of the words, foolproof and incapable of error.